Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're literally shrinking down to the microscopic level to witness this incredible, high-stakes battle happening right inside your body. We rely on antibiotics as modern medicine's ultimate weapon, right? But what if our understanding of this whole microscopic battlefield is just completely flawed? Seriously, what if almost everything you've been told about antibiotics is wrong? In this explainer, we're going to shatter some deeply ingrained medical myths you've probably believed your entire life. We'll dive into the terrifying ninja-like survival tactics of bacteria, and then we'll equip you with the exact blueprint to rebuild your gut health after the fallout. Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap. 1. Beware the antibiotic myths. 2. Masters of bacterial survival. 3. The biofilm fortress. 4. Inside the microbiome fallout. And 5. Rebuilding your gut health. Let's get started. Section 1. Beware the antibiotic myths. What you think versus what science says. We're going to do a rapid-fire myth-busting session right out of the gate because the gap between public perception and actual infectious disease science is absolutely massive. So let me ask you this directly. Have you ever heard someone say, or maybe even said yourself, "Oh, I'm resistant to this antibiotic"? It's an incredibly common phrase, right? We hear it at the doctor's office all the time. But scientifically speaking, it's literally impossible. The myth is that humans become resistant. The absolute fact is that bacteria become resistant. People can absolutely become colonized with drug-resistant bugs, but the human body itself cannot become antibiotic resistant. It's the invaders that adapt, not you. Now, what about this one? Does stopping your antibiotics early cause resistance? For decades, major medical organizations and, well-meaning doctors have warned you to always finish your course, or you risk creating superbugs. It's practically medical dogma at this point. Well, believe it or not, the evidence points to the exact opposite. The myth is that stopping early causes resistance. But the really surprising scientific truth is that more antibiotic use directly causes more resistance. Taking antibiotics puts intense survival pressure on bacteria to mutate. So fundamentally, the more you use them, the more resistance you create in the environment. It's a real game changer when you realize that. Here's another shocking number for you. 10%. A staggering 10% of the U.S. adult population has a penicillin allergy label stamped right on their medical charts. That is a massive chunk of people completely avoiding one of our best drugs. But here is the catch. Only about 10% of those labels represent an actual true allergy. As this quote from an infectious diseases pharmacist highlights, these inappropriate labels are a literal scourge. Because of this massive misunderstanding, doctors are forced to skip highly effective, targeted first-line drugs like penicillin, and instead they have to resort to second- or third-line treatments that might be less effective, more expensive, or honestly, even more toxic to your body. Now, what's really interesting about this next part is Section 2. Masters of bacterial survival. The microscopic ninja. To understand how bacteria survive our most powerful medical weapons, you've got to meet the persister cells. These are a tiny, highly specialized subset of bacteria that enter a completely dormant, metabolically inactive state. Think of them like hibernating bears. Or, really, microscopic ninjas basically playing dead. Because traditional bactericidal antibiotics kill by targeting active cellular processes like cell wall synthesis or DNA replication, these dormant cells completely evade the antibiotic bombs dropping all around them. This brilliantly illustrates the exact mechanism of bacterial persistence in action. When the antibiotic treatment stops and the environment is finally clear, those sleeping persister cells just wake right back up and start regrowing. But here's the terrifying part. Because they've just survived incredible stress, they acquire mutations. Over repeated antibiotic exposures, these surviving mutated persister cells begin to select for highly resistant clones. This relentless cycle is a massive driver of chronic, recurring infections that simply won't go away. Section 3. The biofilm fortress. Microbial castles. So these sneaky persister cells, they don't just fight alone. They actually collaborate to create what's called a biofilm. A biofilm is this dynamic, self-produced matrix where bacteria physically adhere to one another. Picture it as a microscopic fortress made of extracellular polymeric substances, basically a tough, slimy shield made out of sugars, proteins, and DNA. This castle wall acts as an almost impenetrable barrier against our immune systems and our medications, completely shielding the persister cells hidden deep inside. And inside this fortress, bacteria have this fascinating self-destruct-like switch called the toxin-antitoxin system. When bacteria encounter severe stress, like a massive flood of antibiotics, their internal antitoxins degrade. This releases free toxins that purposefully hijack the cell, halting its growth entirely and forcing the bacteria into that dormant, persister state we talked about earlier. They literally put themselves to sleep to survive the siege. Section 4. Inside the microbiome fallout, collateral damage. So the crucial point is, let's zoom back out from those microscopic castle walls and look at the human gut. We need to understand the 3 phases of this microbiome fallout. First, antibiotics attack your gut bacteria indiscriminately. Broad-spectrum antibiotics don't know the good guys from the bad guys. Second, because your protective, friendly bacteria have been completely nuked, there's a rapid rise in unfriendly bacteria. Opportunistic bugs like C. diff can grow completely unchecked, leading to severe issues. And finally, phase 3 is the long, sometimes really difficult journey back to your baseline. Section 5. Rebuilding your gut health, the blueprint for recovery. Okay, we've seen the destruction, so let's shift to an empowering, actionable solution. First up, know the timeline. In the first 1 to 2 weeks, the acute disruption in your gut settles down. By 1 to 2 months, most people's gut diversity returns pretty close to their pre-antibiotic baseline. But for some, especially if they had low diversity to begin with or a history of heavy antibiotic use, it can take 6 months or more for certain bacterial species to fully recover. Everyone's microbiome bounces back at different speeds based on their personal baseline, so you've got to be patient with your body. Let's move to and see how this builds into an actionable, highly practical plan to replenish those good bacteria. Grab a screenshot of this if you need to. First, eat foods high in fiber and polyphenols like nuts and legumes. They act as fuel. Second, add fermented foods like kefir and kimchi to introduce beneficial live microbes. Third, eat a highly diverse diet, aiming for about 30 different plants per week. A diverse plate equals a diverse gut, for sure. And fourth, severely limit ultra-processed foods, because they only serve to weaken your gut barrier. And here's a huge tip: probiotics. A lot of people ask if they should wait until they completely finish their medication to start taking them. Well, actually, the science shows you should take probiotics during and after your antibiotic course. Taking probiotics while you're actively on antibiotics actually helps protect against the dangerous overgrowth of drug-resistant bacteria right when your internal defenses are totally down. Which brings us to the end of our journey today, leaving you with this provocative question to ponder. Are you inadvertently training the ultimate superbugs in your own gut? Or are you actively cultivating a resilient, diverse internal ecosystem? Every single antibiotic you take and every single meal you eat following it is a critical choice in that microscopic battle. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep making smart, informed choices for your incredible, invisible microbiome.